For centuries, the Trojan War was a story, a myth immortalized by Homer. We pictured gleaming bronze armor and heroic duels, but we filed it away as epic poetry. Today, that file is being ripped open. Armed with forensic science and 3D scanners, archaeologists are rewriting the story of the late Bronze Age warrior, and the reality they're uncovering is even more stunning than the legend. We are stepping into the boots of a 3,500-year-old soldier, and what we're finding is changing everything we thought we knew about the Age of Heroes. A startlingly recent discovery has sent ripples across the world of Bronze Age studies. In July 2025, archaeologists in the Czech Republic announced they had found a crumpled sheet of metal in South Moravia. It didn't look like much, but it was a fragment of a 3,200-year-old bronze breastplate, dating squarely to the time of the Trojan War. This is only the second piece of armor of its kind ever found in the country. Found in a hoard with a spearhead and a sickle, the armor was likely a ritual offering to the gods. Using advanced 3D scanning, researchers digitally unfolded the fragile artifact without touching it. The reconstruction revealed intricate decorations, including embossed waves and a punched solar motif around the chest. What's crucial here is that this armor isn't Mycenaean Greek. It belongs to the widespread European Urnfield culture, a civilization known for its advanced metalworking that stretched across Central Europe. This find is a tangible link, proving that the world of gleaming bronze armor wasn't confined to Greece. It was a technology and an ideology shared by a pan-European warrior elite, a high-ranking class of soldiers connected by trade, technology, and a reverence for the tools of war. Homer's descriptions were not just poetic fantasy, they were a snapshot of a real-world military class that dominated a continent. While the Czech armor shows the breadth of this warrior culture, another artifact has settled a decades-long debate about its depth. This is the Dendra panoply. Discovered in a tomb near Dendra, Greece in 1960, this is a nearly complete suit of bronze armor from the 15th century BCE. It's a breathtaking sight, 15 separate bronze plates held together by leather thongs, encasing a warrior from neck to knees. It has a formidable chest plate, huge shoulder guards, and a deep neck guard. For decades, scholars looked at its sheer bulk and questioned if it could ever be used in battle. Was it just ceremonial, a status symbol for a king to wear in a parade? The answer to this question would define our understanding of Mycenaean warfare. Did they have true heavy infantry, or was combat a more mobile, lightly armored affair? In 2024, an international team led by Professor Andreas Fleuris of the University of Thessaly decided to answer this question once and for all. They took a meticulously crafted replica of the Dendra armor, matching the original's 23-kilogram weight, and gave it to the people best suited to test it, elite Marines of the Hellenic Armed Forces. What followed was an exhaustive 11-hour combat simulation. This wasn't just a random stress test. The entire protocol was designed by analyzing Homer's Iliad, which provides the most detailed surviving descriptions of late Bronze Age combat. The simulation mimicked the duration, calorie expenditure, and activities of a day of fighting as described in the epic poem. To make it even more authentic, the participants ate a specially designed Homeric diet of bread, beef, goat cheese, olives, onions, and red wine, providing the roughly 4,500 calories a warrior would have consumed. The researchers monitored every physiological detail: heart rate, oxygen consumption, core temperature, fluid loss. They called this new field archaeophysiology. The results were nothing short of revolutionary. The Dendra armor was not only battle-worthy, it was extraordinarily effective. The articulated design, once thought clumsy, allowed for a full range of motion. The Marines could run, jump, and perform complex combat maneuvers with surprising ease. The physiological strain was well within the limits for a fit, trained soldier, even over 11 hours. The conclusion was unequivocal. The Dendra panoply was not a parade costume. It was a highly effective piece of military technology. A warrior wearing it would have been a walking tank, a terrifying and almost unstoppable force against lighter-armed opponents. The experiment single-handedly overturned decades of debate and proved that the Mycenaeans possessed the capability for true heavy infantry, fundamentally altering our understanding of their military power. The Dendra experiment tells us what the armor could do, but forensic archaeology tells us what actually happened. By studying the bones of Bronze Age soldiers, a grim story of combat emerges. Skeletal remains from Mycenaean and Minoan burials show a range of trauma, and the patterns are revealing. For instance, while armor like the Dendra panoply protected the torso, injuries are commonly found on the arms. A classic example is the perifracture, an injury to the ulna bone in the forearm, sustained when a soldier raised his arm to block a blow. This tells us the limbs were not only vulnerable, but actively used in defense. The immense weight of the early Mycenaean tower shields could also cause telltale stress injuries to the arm bones. Skull traumas are also common, confirming that the head was a frequent target, which explains the proliferation of boar's tusk and bronze helmets. The weapons themselves tell their own stories. Use-wear analysis, which examines microscopic scratches and chips on the edges of swords and spears, can reveal if a weapon was used in combat, what it struck, be it bone, flesh, or another weapon, and even the angle of attack. But the forensic record has its limits. Most fatal sword attacks would have targeted the soft tissue of the neck or abdomen, leaving no trace on the skeleton. The injuries we see on bone are just a fraction of the total picture, but they paint a consistent scene of brutal, close-quarters fighting, where armor was the key to survival. The Dendra panoply was the pinnacle of protection, but it was just one part of a complex military kit. And perhaps no piece of that kit bridges the gap between archaeology and Homeric poetry better than the boar's tusk helmet. The Iliad describes one in meticulous detail, a leather cap lined with felt, with rows of white boar tusks stitched to the outside. For a long time, this was dismissed as a poetic flourish, until archaeologists found them. At sites like Mycenaean and Knossos, they've unearthed helmets constructed exactly as Homer described. Hunting the ferocious wild boar was a dangerous, high-status activity for the Mycenaean elite. A single helmet required the tusks of up to 40 or 50 boars, making it a powerful symbol of strength and bravery. While not as strong as solid bronze, the overlapping tusks would have been remarkably effective at deflecting blows. Before full-plate armor, the primary defense was the shield. Early Mycenaean warriors wielded enormous body shields. There were two types: the rectangular tower shield, famously used by the hero Ajax, and the distinctive figure-8 shield. Made from a wicker frame covered in layers of oxhide, they were large enough to cover the entire body. They were so large, in fact, they had to be carried on a strap slung over the shoulder, freeing both hands for a long, thrusting spear. As armor, like the Dendra panoply, became more common, these massive shields were replaced by smaller, rounder shields held by a central grip. This reflects a fundamental change in tactics, away from the static, heavily armored individual towards more mobile groups of soldiers. The Achaeans are famously called well-greaved in the Iliad, and archaeology confirms it. Bronze shin guards, or greaves, were essential for protecting the lower legs. Swords also evolved, from long, slender thrusting blades to shorter, sturdier swords that could both cut and thrust, a more versatile weapon for a more fluid battlefield. But the spear remained the king of weapons, shifting from a long, two-handed lance to a shorter, more versatile spear that could be thrown or used for thrusting. This sophisticated equipment wasn't the product of a loose band of heroes. It was the output of a highly organized, militaristic society. Our proof comes from the most unlikely of sources: clay tablets. The Mycenaean administrative records, written in a script called Linear B, were preserved when the palaces burned. These tablets are mostly economic inventories, but they provide an unparalleled look into the Mycenaean war machine. They list hundreds of chariots, thousands of arrowheads, and inventories of armor, listed with the ideogram Tarake, that correspond perfectly with panoplies, like the one from Dendra. The tablets reveal a complex military hierarchy, with a king or wanax at the top. They famously detail the disposition of coastal watch units, recording the commanders and soldiers assigned to defend against a seaborne attack, a chilling premonition of the chaos that was to come. The role of the chariot has long been debated. Unlike in the Near East, where they were mobile archery platforms, Homer describes them mostly as battlefield taxis. Heroes would ride to a fight, dismount to engage in single combat, and have their charioteer wait to extract them. The evidence suggests this is largely correct. The chariot served to convey elite, heavily armored warriors to the front lines. But this entire system, the elite warrior, the chariot, the sophisticated bronze armor, was about to be swept away. The late 13th and 12th centuries BCE saw the late Bronze Age collapse. Palaces burned, trade routes were severed, and entire civilizations fell. The nature of warfare itself was changing. A key piece of forensic evidence for this transition is the famous warrior vase, a crater from Mycenaean created during this period of turmoil. It depicts soldiers marching in a disciplined, uniform fashion. They are more lightly equipped than the heroes of earlier art, carrying smaller shields and shorter spears. Their knapsacks suggest they are part of a mobile force capable of traveling long distances. This isn't a heroic duel. It's the image of an army on the move, a harbinger of the mass migrations and raiding that defined the age of the Sea Peoples. The very technology that defined the era, bronze, was about to be superseded by iron. Iron ore was far more plentiful than the copper and tin needed for bronze, allowing for the equipping of larger, if less spectacularly armored armies. The world of the Trojan War hero, clad in gleaming bronze from head to toe, was coming to an end. But thanks to the painstaking work of archaeologists and the innovative application of forensic science, their world is no longer lost to myth. The evidence, etched in bronze and bone, proves that behind the legends stood very real and very formidable men of war.